Hello and welcome to another episode. I'm going to be refurbishing this original Game Boy for my friend Mark. It doesn't quite work, but we're going to make it work, hopefully. So I'm going to crack this open, and first we'll do some testing, and I'll show you how it responds to games, and it's missing its front bezel. So we'll get into cleaning this up and making it look like a somewhat new Game Boy. Let's get into it. Okay, so here it is. Like I said, it's missing the front bezel. It's got a lot of like sticker residue and some names on here. I did double check with Mark. Sometimes people like to leave the history on their games, but he said go ahead and clean it up, so I will. But let me show you how this responds to, say, Dr. Mario. So the graphics are a little glitchy. You get the Nintendo logo. That is as far as we get. So I'll take the game out, put it back in, and now it's a black bar. I can't start the game. That's all it does. So what we'll do is we'll pull this apart and get it cleaned up and check the pin connector inside to see what's going on there. Maybe clean it up and retest. Yep, so we need to use a tri-wing driver to open this beast up. So there are the tri-wing bits there. See, it's not like a Phillips where it would be a cross. It's only 3. It's actually pretty simple. It just has a ribbon cable that I assume just slides out like so. You can see all this blue right here. That is corrosion coming in from the battery terminals. So hopefully it didn't damage too much. You can see it's gone all the way over to this copper ground plane. That should not be eaten away like that. So yeah, let's get this pulled up and see what we have. Once you get inside, they have regular Phillips screws. And it does. Look at the corrosion on that battery terminal. It looks like it's gone into the cartridge connector as well. I don't know if you can see this, but some of those pins inside that cartridge connector, the pin connector, those are blue and corroded. With it being right next to the battery terminal, it just creeped right into that cartridge connector. I'm trying to think of the best way to do this. Should I unsolder the pin connector and clean it? Seems like a lot of work, but that might be the only way to do it without ruining everything else. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just Put some solder flux on here. Okay, so I have a bunch of new solder on there, and I'm just going to try to wick that up with my solder wick. Here we go. Finally came off. That was a doozy. So now I can clean up that side, clean off these pins. Okay, so that's that side. Pretty much cleaned up solder-wise anyway. Now I'm going to work on this side next. I'm going to use my classic standby on all these bits and soak them in CLR. See, the corrosion has gotten right in there, and it's along the back of the connector as well. Okay, so I'm going to put on some protective gloves because we're going to be using some CLR. We're going to soak that little guy in a tray. And you can see it bubbling, which is pretty awesome. Well, those corroded pins are. That CLR is dissolving all the nasty bits. So we'll let that sit and then scrub it with a toothbrush. The insides of our pin connector, all that corrosion is gone. I'm just going to insert the toothbrush in and out like so. Now dealing with this is going to be tricky-ish. I think I'm going to submerge the corner in. Wow, look at that reaction. That's awesome. It's almost like hydrogen peroxide on a wound. That really reveals the damage. And that's from leaving batteries in electronics when you're not using them and they're stored for even a few months. This could potentially happen. Our damage looks pretty bad towards that battery terminal, and that messed up the whole pin connection slot. So get all that rough stuff probably sanded down, and then look at what our see what our traces look like. So here, now these pads on the top, they don't connect to anything. They do nothing more than help hold in the cartridge slot. So I'm just going to kind of scrape away this mess here. Now I'll just take a needle and go through each hole to make sure those are empty and open. Okay, so I put the cartridge connector back in. All the pins lined up fine, and they all fit in the holes just just as nice. And now we're going to do a little bit of black satin fingernail polish just to cover up the copper there. I'm doing this just so there's no exposed ground plane. So all of that protective covering on the PCB wore off. And we're not soldering this side. Otherwise I'd be covering up my solder pads and that'd be kind of bad. And then while it's wet, in case I got any in these holes, I'll just use my needle to clear those out. So as soon as that's dry, we'll put this cartridge connector back in and resolder it. So now that the fingernail polish is fairly dry, I'm just going to put our cartridge slot back in. Ensure it lines up and comes through. It looks pretty nice. So we'll add some solder flux and start soldering this connector back down. So I have all those pins soldered. Just need to clean up the solder flux, and then I'll partially put it together to see if it works, and then we'll get into like cleaning and all that shit. Okay, so for the most part we have the front cleaned up. We pretty much have all that glue off there. There's some residue left over, but I'm just going to leave that residue on there. It looks pretty nice. The names didn't come off completely. You can still kind of see some faint marking here. Not bad though. So we'll put the front piece back together and then put a new faceplate, a screen bezel on here. And now we have a new screen here. Make sure our battery light is lined up before we press it in. Then we peel off the protective layer. And bam! And there is our finished Game Boy. We've cleaned it up, we got a new screen on there, and it looks pretty sweet. Now, for the moment of truth. Let's load up Dr. Mario. And that looks awesome. I won't let the music play like I said earlier, because we don't want to be pointed out by Nintendo. But yeah, the volume control works fine now. I'll probably have to push down the bezel a little bit more. But that looks pretty sweet. So that's it. Here is the finished product. It is the refurbished original Game Boy. So I hope Mark is pleased with how this came out. I did notice testing it that there are a couple lines in the LCD display that don't work, but I don't think it really gets in the way of anything, but you know, the screen itself would have to be replaced inside. Not a big deal, it's an option. But there it is. That is your refurbished Game Boy. So I'm pretty happy with the project. It turned out really well. And we were able to get through all the volume control issues and the screen. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed this lengthy episode. So until next time, give me a thumbs up, subscribe, and wait about 2 seconds and I'll announce the winner for the ATARI 2600. Okay kids, so the winner for the ATARI 2600 set is Mark Grammaticus II. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, but get in touch with me, Mark, and I'll ship that box of stuff to you. And yeah, this PlayStation 3 video is not going to happen because I tried everything in God's creation to fix it. I reflowed, I replaced the power supply, nothing. So, Mark, get in touch with me, and you win the ATARI 2600. So, yeah. I will see you guys later, and thanks for watching. Bye.